Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. We're just going to give everybody a couple minutes and then we'll get started. Thanks. Okay. Thanks so much for taking some time this afternoon to hear me speak. We're going to talk today about Sage 100 and the power of the cloud. Long and short, just going to talk about today's landscape, today's ecosystem, some really great industry specific statistics around where we're at today with all of the craziness that COVID threw at us. And then as well, really how people are utilizing the cloud and really using it to elevate their applications, specifically Sage 100. So my name is Tyler Bauer. I'm the Director of Cloud and Hosting Services for Cloud at Work. Cloud at Work is a Net at Work sister company. Um, Most of you, I'm sure, use Net at Work for Sage 100 consulting. I'm also the Director of Cloud for Net at Work as well. So really, my job is to do two main things. The first is to focus on emerging technology for cloud systems, and the second is to work with our customers and prospective customers in helping them identify key expectation points, key risk analysis, as well as gap analysis around moving and migrating to the cloud. The presentation is going to be roughly 30 minutes. I actually am really bad at adhering to time, so I actually fly through pretty quickly the PowerPoints. My favorite part about doing these is really engaging back and forth in dialogue. So if you have any questions, please type them into the question box below. There's a drop down that says questions. You can type that in. I promise we'll answer every question that you have. And at the end, I'll actually have my contact info if you'd rather just reach out to me directly. So first, let's just get our brains, in the right thinking order, and start looking at today's landscape and really how the cloud and business is really shifted because of some of the current events. So I'm sure everybody has felt the impact of COVID-19 and really how that's implemented new philosophies around business in general. But a lot of companies have found a lot of uh, transition as far as working remotely. Some of us, including my company, Cloud at Work, we were 100% remote before COVID-19. But a lot of companies really were set up as a brick and mortar, come into the office, operate off of our local network, and then overnight everybody's remote. And so essentially it creates a situation where now everybody's home is like its own little remote office, right? And that creates some possible uh, some possible choke points as far as bandwidth at your headquarters. Do you have the right capabilities to allow access in at that level as far as multiple employees connecting at the same time? Are you doing it securely? Are you opening up yourself to threats because of endpoints and unfamiliar endpoints accessing the network? These are all things that businesses are faced with, and we'll get into it in a little bit. But the main reason why we're seeing a huge spike of ransomware and cybersecurity threats because of the uncertainty and the major shift in the way that we're operating our businesses. And cloud is definitely an easy way, a tried and true way, a turnkey way to solve some of those business operations problems. But what a lot of companies are doing are really rushing to the cloud, right? Going to public cloud providers like Amazon or Azure, or running to the first cloud provider that they're seeing, or the cheapest cloud provider that they're seeing, and not taking the time to really understand that this is a major shift for business. This is a major shift for how we work and how we operate. And we're really, in regards to Sage, really looking at moving our core business application and its data, which is the most critical in most organizations, to an unfamiliar place. So it's really important that we understand the ecosystem, we understand what's available, and understand what types of risk and what types of expectations are acceptable for each of our individual businesses. These are just some articles highlighting kind of how the cloud is being used today. I don't know about you guys, but I've been on one or two Zoom meetings, possibly a beverage involved. I'm no comment there, but through the entire quarantine process, and really staying mainly within our home, the cloud has been extremely beneficial for our business and keeping things moving forward. So the reason that a lot of Sage companies, we can just insert Sage here for ERP. The reason why you're seeing a huge transition, obviously with current events, but also, CRM and HR applications for the most part have been built in the cloud era, I'll call it, where they were written for cloud technology, written for multi-tenancy, and really have no other option besides cloud-based technology. Where traditional ERP applications, specifically Sage, they offer a very unique very unique value proposition, which is, here's Sage 100, and then here's this phenomenal channel community around it that's enabling different third parties, different types of unique features that really allow us as business owners to tweak and to make best of breed software that really elevates whatever it is that we're using it for, whether it's financials or distribution or manufacturing. We're able to really hone in that software. The challenge with that is when you have multiple layers, right? You have multiple providers, multiple different software packages or integrations to other packages. It makes it very difficult to get all of those things on the same page from a cloud perspective. So most ERP applications that are written post, let's call it 2008, are going to be SaaS first applications, or software as a services, where they're allowing integrations in probably to other clouds, but it's very specific, very red taped as far as, here's this box that we've built, here's this architecture that we've built, and either you fit within these restrictions or you don't. What's really, along with that type of software as a service approach to ERP cloud computing, the other piece that's really helped elevate this is virtual private cloud or application specific hosting, which is what Cloud at Work does. So Cloud at Work essentially says, listen, you have Sage 100. We know that you're using things like Avalara, using things like ScanForce, using other different components around your application to drive value for your business process. We are creating a cloud environment that's completely isolated and has no limitation for your applications, ISVs, customizations. That type of all-inclusive mentality is really helping heighten that hockey stick growth. And even so, with the current events, you're going to see that grow even faster. Since this is done obviously at the end of 2019, so I'm sure these stats are a little off given what we just went through, but just in a 3-year period, this just shows you the shift of where business is taking their on-prem workloads and moving them to the cloud, and how they're doing that. Not only, there's a few reasons for this transition. The first is that most of the top talent within coming out into the marketplace, as far as the workforce, are going to work for service providers or publishers, and so that limits the amount of folks internally that we can hire to keep us on the bleeding edge. The second piece is that technology is changing at such a rapid pace that traditional refresh methods, traditional evaluation processes are really just leaving companies in the dust. I mean, really, if you think about how fast technology is changing, if you bought servers back in 2017, I mean, think about how much technology has changed in 3 years. It doesn't seem like that much, but really, when you think about even just the iPhone, right? The iPhone came out, I believe, in 2009, 2010, something like that, right? So, I mean, it's not that far off. I mean, that's about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So nothing is changing at a more rapid pace than technology, and it's not staying at a consistent rate of change. It's continuously compounding and changing. The reason for that change mainly is cybersecurity threats, and as well just the new millennials coming into the workforce, and really wanting more instant gratification as far as data, as far as access, as far as just in your fingertips access to different points. So these things are changing rapidly, and they're going to continue to change rapidly. The cloud gives a turnkey way to access technology that we would not be able to afford or keep pace with on our own, unless we were just had a blank checkbook and unlimited funds to invest. We talked a little bit about the rise of cybersecurity threats and the change pace of technology. But if you think about it, this is a great statistic to show you just in a 10-year span from 2007 to 2017 how fast cybersecurity has changed our lives, not just in a business stance, but also in a personal stance. And when you think about back in 2007, 2008, I remember, the Target hacks and some of those pieces coming to fruition, and thinking, I'm entering the workforce at that period of time, and really, cybersecurity was in its infancy, and we're thinking it's really after government or very big corporations who have a lot to lose, right? Or have this safeguarded IP within their infrastructure that people are looking to steal. We never thought that the the actual goal would be to just take down or put regular business up and down Main Street business in a vulnerable position, because what would be the point of that? There's nothing that they could sell, from that. And we quickly learned that with the development of cryptocurrency, that money could be transferred without any type of footprint or trace. And basically, by putting companies in a vulnerable position, these threats could extract cryptocurrency and demand cryptocurrency payment to release back their data. Most times, nothing's ever stolen. It's really just to kind of put you in a vulnerable position and put you out of business, so you pay the ransom. Um, those types of threats have increased dramatically over time and are going to continue to increase because technology is rapidly changing, old technology is phasing out, and people are not refreshing or going through evaluation periods or keeping their finger on the pulse of their core technology and infrastructure, which is really just making it, fishing with dynamite, honestly. So doing things like not having, cybersecurity policies or cyber training for our employees, doing things by not having viable redundancy as far as backups and data presence, and doing things like having redundancies as far as threat intrusion and endpoint protection. These are all things that service providers and have really been delivering for a long time. It's just now, as a service, is becoming much more consumed by business because everybody's realizing it's so hard to really just maintain this and keep everything in check, across the board, right? You use companies who focus on this day in and day out, and you can usually do it at a much lower rate from a utilization standpoint and ROI standpoint. Just some things that have happened. I mean, one big one that's happened, I don't know if everybody is aware, but the Citrix NetScaler threat, that was a huge one that happened right around the COVID-19 insertion. And then as well, just more and more matters of security are popping up daily. I can tell you that, in the next month or so, we're probably going to see a ton of reports come out around and statistics around companies that were infected. you hear about the ones that report it, but I know for a fact that there's a lot of companies who have been impacted and try to not report that or get that out in the public just because of possibly being embarrassed or possibly the detriment it might feel or look like for their business. But that being here nor there, this current landscape, this working remote landscape, has created new challenges. And that's around bringing in unfamiliar local devices that could or could not be affected. That's having proper security protocols and having proper redundancies at our data center, which is now our home office, and as well having proper capabilities as far as performance and monitoring at that location as well. These are all things that are leading to as well lack of communication, where before I could get up out of my cubicle, walk next door, ask Bob if this looked okay or if this email is suspicious. Now, some of us are left talking to our kids or our pets, and I don't know about you, but my son doesn't really like to talk. He just likes to hit me with plastic swords while I'm on conference calls. But the point is that these threats are adapting to the new life, to the new normal around how we're operating. We need to be aware of that, and we need to be very, very heightened around how we handle that. So let's start here. So I'm going to take the next piece to kind of talk through Cloud at Work and our 3 layers of product and really our story. After that, we're going to get into questions. So hopefully you guys have some great questions. But essentially, Cloud at Work started about 2.5, 3 years ago. I came over I have a large amount of experience in cloud computing, and we came out with the idea of saying that Net at Work is the largest Sage reseller in the country, top 3 in the world, and that we have a phenomenal application experience across multiple applications: Sage 100, Sage 300, X3, HRMS, CRM. And what we wanted to do was build cloud infrastructure to support that and to create an experience where customers didn't have to manage a cloud vendor and manage an application vendor, that could be all in one, because that's going to eliminate finger pointing. It's going to create a software as a service experience without the limitations and the guidelines of software as a service, where you have to upgrade once a year or twice a year. You have to not have any customizations and fit within my box. You can't integrate to this because that hasn't been written yet. Get in development lines. We wanted to eliminate all of those boundaries and at the same time create a software and infrastructure tie where we could create a software as a service cloud experience for Sage 100. We decided to do this in 3 buckets by saying, listen, if you're a Sage customer and you're looking for cloud services, there's 3 main things that you should consider. The first is you should look for a cloud provider who understands your application. So if you're using Sage 100, you should look for a cloud provider who understands Sage 100. The reason for that is up front in the process as far as architecture and provisioning, making sure that you're not paying too much for resources that you don't need, making sure that there's enough resources so you're not running into problems, and making sure that the application is installed and configured correctly for cloud connection. The second reason under the application is because after you're live in the application, you want to make sure that when your users have a problem, that they're not trying to figure out whether it's a cloud problem or an application problem, that they're able to really get that solved within one location. So that way, you guys don't become the experts to try and delineate between problems, and as well, you don't have vendors finger pointing at each other. So that's the first reason. We firmly believe that if you're using a Sage application, you should use a Sage specific hosting provider. The second piece is really around cloud capabilities and cloud infrastructure. So when you look at cloud capabilities and cloud infrastructure, there's a lot of different mentalities out there. The the first way that we decided to come to market was with our best of breed offering. We understood that there wasn't many Sage specific cloud providers out there, and there certainly wasn't any Sage specific cloud providers doing enterprise level cloud computing with cybersecurity, data redundancy, and multi-threaded DR built into their solution. We decided that we needed to build this ourselves because we needed to have control of the entire solution. We couldn't build this on an Amazon or an Azure. One, because the price, we lost too much control of the pricing and the capabilities to deliver at a certain price point. And two, we weren't able to really deploy and deliver and control all aspects of the SLA. We were relying on others. And I'm a big proponent of eliminating layers and having simplification from that. So we came to market with our virtual private cloud solution. Now, this virtual private cloud solution could stand with any managed cloud solution in the marketplace across the world. We have 99.99% uptime guarantees. We have tier 4 data centers across the United States. We have a 24/7, 365-day support and monitoring service. We're custom built specific to your business needs and your application needs. We're resource-based pricing for this product, and that's extremely transparent, where we show you per unit pricing and the units for each of that. So it's super easy to understand how the levers turn up, turn down. There's no limitations, and this is my favorite, which is our data presence. And this is a very, very big one, and I'll explain why. So every customer in our data center, no matter if you're paying us $100 a month or $100,000 a month, has the exact same data policy, redundancy policy, and cybersecurity policies. Every customer has hourly snapshots that are stored for 48 hours on a separate network. Every customer has daily backups that are stored for 30 days in a separate data center. And as well, you have production data on its own network, it's behind its own firewall on its own virtual private cloud. That means that every customer, no matter the size, has 3 locations of data. A lot of our competitors, maybe you've heard in the past 2 years or so, having major ransomware attacks on their data centers, taking down, hundreds, if not thousands of clients, leaving them helpless for really 2 to 3 weeks at the end of year and in different periods throughout the year. The reason that they were in that vulnerable position is because that service provider kept backups locally on the same network as production. So when production became impacted, backups were not on a separate network. The way that we make things very difficult is the first piece is every single customer is isolated in their own cloud. There's no thread between or behind for each of our customers tied in, where if one customer becomes infected or lets in a threat, that's going to trickle into another company. That doesn't happen the way that we've architected and deployed. There's no threat of that. Some companies have that type of multi-tenant infrastructure where there is sharing on the back end, and that allows that threat to kind of spread, similar to like a virus. Our architecture prevents that. The second is, even if that would happen within that isolated environment, that's really one network that threat is penetrating or hurting. We have 2 other locations of data other than production out of the box, where we can pull to the hour within 2 days or within 30 days in another data center, where we have basically 2 other locations where backup data is stored, and we can restore that data for you. If the only way to get put a customer in a vulnerable position is for that threat to impact all 3 networks at the exact same time. That being said, it's highly unlikely, not impossible, but we also have a 4th layer, which is our disaster recovery, which is optional, which allows for a 4-hour recovery time objective and a 1-hour recovery point objective, and builds a second environment in a second data center where we're replicating real time the changes that you're making to that second environment. So you can have as many as 4 locations of data with us within our virtual private cloud offering. And everything is geodiverse data centers. Everything is built with an N+1 redundancy methodology. We have SOC 2 Type 2 compliances, GDPR framework, NIST framework. So we're very, very focused on security, very, very focused on compliance within this product schema, and all of our products really. Once we came to market with this product, we quickly realized that there are customers who are under 5 users, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 users, where this product is very, very strong for them. And maybe they're okay with taking on a little bit more risk. They're okay with understanding that they want to get this to the cloud, but they don't need disaster recovery. They don't need uh, a fully dedicated virtual firewall, right? So we created a hybrid secure environment. And the reason we created this hybrid secure environment is really looking at our competition that were impacted by these cybersecurity threats and ransomware threats and saying that we can do this better and we can do this at the same price point as our competition. So we created a second tier, a lower tier cloud solution that still has the same data redundancy policies of hourly snapshots of 48 hours, daily backups of 30 days, but there's not disaster recovery options in this solution. In this solution, every customer has their own dedicated database or application server, but there's certain functionality behind the scenes that is shared between multiple customers. We do secure that at a very high level, but there is an additional risk, and that's unlike our virtual private. There is an additional risk of one customer possibly impacting another customer, but not impacting your production data, not impacting your application data because it's on its own server. So in this solution, we're able to hit price points of as low as $90 per user, and that's going to include licensing if you need SQL, Excel, all of the different functioning software that you need in order to roll out your Sage 100 or your Sage 300. Then the third piece that we recently launched, and I was shocked to look at the marketplace and start to hear that a lot of companies aren't getting their Sage data redundantly off-site. Backup is a solution that's been around for a very, very long time. Some of it can be very convoluted. Some of it can become very, very confusing. I wanted to put a solution out to the Sage 100, Sage 300, and Sage X3 ecosystem that says, look, for $50 a month, we'll give you up to 100 gig of storage within our data center. We'll help set up the licensing, the Veeam licensing to replicate your data from on-prem to our cloud. And it gives you just a very secure way to store for 14 days an offsite copy of your backup. Even if it's redundant to your current backup policies, for $50 a month, it's always a good option to have multiple layers and multiple access points to data and copies of your data. Those are really our three solutions. All of them wrap up to essentially say that if you're using Sage solutions in your business today and you're looking for a cloud provider who understands those applications and understands the ISV market and understands that community, that Cloud at Work is the best solution for you because we have multiple solutions that can fit your needs as far as evaluations and expectations, and we do things the right way. We're not cutting corners, and we have a fantastic reputation in the marketplace. So I appreciate your time. And if you have any questions, please type those in and I'll get to those right now. Okay, the first question that I have, is this a spinoff from Sage 100's Sage 100 product or a new service that you're providing your customers to have their products stored in the cloud? Yeah, so Sage 100 Cloud is a misleading name, and that is directly from Sage. So Sage 100 Cloud just means that you're paying monthly for your application maintenance, or similar to if you paid every year before. This time you just pay monthly and you get your access to your upgrades. You get different features in that monthly number. What we're providing is that solution, Sage 100 Cloud, does not give cloud infrastructure. So you still have to have a server, or you still have to go out and procure other cloud resources. What we're simply saying is we at Net at Work and Cloud at Work, we have our own data centers. We have a cloud service that's geared specifically for Sage 100, and it's the best solution out there for Sage 100 or any Sage product because of us having that deep knowledge of the application and being able to deliver it at a very, very competitive price point and at a very, very high service level. It's a great question. Thank you. Are there any other questions that I can help answer? Here's another question. How does having Sage 100 in the cloud impact using F9 for reporting or an add-on such as DocLink? So that's a great question. So DocLink is Alltech. We have many customers who are using Alltech in our cloud. I can show you actually an example here. This is not Sage 100 specific, but this should give you an idea of how we think of the different pieces here. So this is an example of our configurator, right? And how we think of all of the different components. This is Sage X3's configurator, but down here, these are a list of all the ISVs that we build into the solution and create architecture for based on whatever your business is using. So here you'll see Alltech and DocLink. We even have the Doc Alpha OCR portion. We have different types of scanning solutions. We have different types of ISVs specific to Sage 100, TrueCommerce, Avalara. So there's no limitations as far as third parties. The easiest way to describe it is if you can do it on premise, you can do it in our cloud. It's a great question. Thank you. Is there any other questions that I can help with? Okay, let me just jump to the end here. If I really appreciate everyone's time, and please don't hesitate to reach out. I'd love to talk with you guys, and you can reach out to your account managers. You can reach out to anyone really at Net at Work, and they can connect us to talk. But here's all of my direct contact info. I'm sure our marketing team will send you a copy of this presentation that'll have all my contact info as well. But please reach out if you have any questions. There's no bad questions, and certainly would love to talk with you guys just about your business and some of the things that you're looking to accomplish. Sorry, I have one more question. So how do we connect to the database if it's in the cloud? For example, we use an ODBC connection to connect to the database tables in Excel. Would we be able to do the same thing? Yep. So within the infrastructure, we would actually install a copy of Excel for you and bring over that ODBC connection. It's a great question. The way that Sage 100 customers connect to our cloud is actually through RDS published app. So what that does is it's actually we would publish an icon to your actual native desktop. So you would jump into RDS, or you can jump into it from any web browser, Google Chrome, IE. You would type in the web address that we would give you, which would be business name, .cloudatwork.com, something like that. At that point, you would then have a menu where your application icons would exist. You can click on Sage 100, or if you have multiple applications with us, you can pick which application you want. The application will launch right within your native desktop, so it's not going to create that window within a window, that clunky, heavy desktop feel. We have that if you want that, but most customers subscribe to the published app, and it just opens the individual application up. And because we're doing everything virtual private, we can actually create things like single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, doing different things around networking like LDAP that really customize and simplify the connection to our cloud to make it as seamless as possible for end users and simple. I'm a big proponent of simple for user experience. Any other questions? Would Sage Intelligence work? Yep. So Sage Intelligence will work. there's really no limitations to any of the third parties, modules, customizations. We have customers who have 300, 400 users within the system. They have tons of customization. They use tons of different ISVs and third parties, and there's no problem at all. So there's no limitation at all to what will work and what won't work within our cloud. And as well, we can show that to you as well if you'd like to see a demo or would like to kind of move into like a proof of concept with your data. We can do all of that. Good questions. Thank you. Any other questions before we sign off? Okay. Great group. Thank you so much for the questions. I really appreciate it. And like I said, just get in touch with me if you have any other questions, and be happy to talk with you. Really appreciate your guys' time. Thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon. Have a great day.